Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to basically break down complex stuff and give you the key insights fast.
Yeah, saving you the time, getting straight to the good stuff.
And today, this one's really for you, the learner. Someone who wants, knowledge that actually sticks, maybe some surprising facts, but without feeling totally bogged down.
Definitely. And our mission for this deep dive, we're getting into Shoe Dog, the memoir by Nike's creator.
Right, Phil Knight.
Mm.
But we're not just telling the story. We're pulling out the practical, actionable lessons you can actually use.
Exactly. It's a fantastic story about building this huge company, sure. But the real gold here is the universal stuff.
Like what?
Well, like chasing a passion, hitting roadblocks, which always happens, and how success often looks, well, pretty different from what you might expect.
Okay, let's jump in. The beginning, his crazy idea.
Hmm.
It starts kind of personally, doesn't it?
It really does. He realized, he wasn't going to be this elite athlete,
Right.
but he loved that feeling athletes have, that sense of just playing, total immersion.
Yeah, he even asked that question, something like, what if there were a way, without being an athlete, to feel what athletes feel?
To play all the time instead of working.
Or else to enjoy work so much that it becomes essentially the same thing. That hits home, makes you think about your own drivers.
Totally. And what's really key here is that Nike didn't start with some super detailed business plan on page one.
No spreadsheets.
Not at first. It started with this feeling, this wanting a certain kind of experience, and that led to the crazy idea.
Which was pretty vague initially, right? Just
Yeah.
something about shoes from Japan.
Yeah, vague but powerful, something he felt he had to do. It wasn't just let's sell shoes. It was deeper, about finding that passion at work.
And that idea, even being vague, it just grabs him. He writes it with such intensity.
Oh yeah, that quote.
Maybe? No, I thought running faster, faster, like he's being chased and chasing at the same time.
It will work. By God, I'll make it work. No maybes about it.
Yeah.
Phew. You feel that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That conviction.
And that's maybe the first big thing for you, the learner. Think about your own crazy ideas.
Doesn't have to be a billion-dollar company idea.
Not at all. Just those projects or passions that really light you up. Do they feel like a calling almost?
Hmm.
Because that initial, maybe slightly irrational belief, that can be incredibly powerful fuel when things get tough.
Okay, so context. We're talking 1962.
Yeah. Different world. Much bigger, in a way. Less connected.
Flying internationally wasn't like hopping on a budget flight.
Right. So when Knight starts talking about importing shoes from Japan, well, his dad was pretty skeptical, understandably so.
A practical guy. His dad. And the odds were terrible, weren't they? Like the book mentioned.
Uh-huh. 26 out of 27 new businesses failed. Think about that.
That's brutal.
So for you, the learner, think about times you've had a big idea and maybe shared it with someone who's a bit more conventional.
Yeah, gets that skeptical look.
Exactly. His dad's reaction wasn't mean, it was just realistic for the time. A global shoe import business sounded, well, kind of nuts.
And yet, where does Knight end up for a bit? Hawaii.
Yeah, surfing, odd jobs, dive bars. Looks pretty carefree on the surface.
But that idea is still bubbling away underneath.
Totally. He even kind of looks down on people not living life to the fullest, that quote.
Why can't they be more like us? Why can't they seize the day? That youthful fire.
It's that mix, isn't it? Idealism, maybe a bit of naivety, but also this strong belief you can do things differently, shake things up.
But even in Paradise, he's wrestling with it. He mentions this faint voice.
Mm-hmm. Pushing him, telling him not to give up on the idea.
And that voice leads him to buy an open plane ticket around the world.
Pretty bold move. Talk about listening to your gut.
Right. So actionable insight time. Think about those gut feelings, those intuitions you've had.
Yeah, even when everyone else is saying, maybe not.
What did that inner voice say? Did you listen? What happened? That reflection can be really useful.
Definitely. Okay, so off he goes. Lands in Tokyo.
Which is still recovering from the war. Big contrast to Hawaii.
Huge. But he finds kindness, right? American expats help him out.
Yeah. They give him advice, help him navigate. Shows the power of unexpected connections.
Exactly. These folks weren't in the shoe game, but they provided that crucial bit of support, that community. Never underestimate your network.
So in Japan, his focus really narrows. He needs a quality running shoe.
And he zeroes in on the Tiger brand, made by a company called Onitsuka in Kobe. He sees potential there.
And those expats, the XGIs, they give him some really key advice about doing business in Japan.
Super important stuff, like don't do the hard sell, understand their communication style is more indirect.
Patience is key.
Right. And that amazing story about the emperor's surrender announcement being so understated.
Oh yeah, the war situation has not developed to Japan's advantage. Brilliant.
It perfectly illustrates that need for cultural sensitivity, for reading between the lines.
Which is great advice for anyone dealing cross-culturally, right? Business, travel, whatever. Observe, listen, respect the differences.
Absolutely. So armed with this advice, he goes to meet the Onitsuka executives.
And he walks in and just feels the history, right? The lingering effects of the war.
Yeah, a certain atmosphere. But also, he sees their resilience, how they're rebuilding.
That awareness of context is important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Helps you navigate.
For sure. Anyway, despite all that, he somehow manages to swing the deal.
Gets the U.S. distribution rights for Tiger shoes. Amazing.
But that's just hurdle number one cleared. Now he actually has to sell them.
Cue the car trunk.
Literally.
Yeah.
Driving around the Pacific Northwest, hitting up track meets. True hustle.
It shows you got to be willing to do the grunt work, especially early on. No shortcuts.
Totally. And then Jeff Johnson enters the picture.
Another runner from Stanford. Super enthusiastic.
Like, really enthusiastic. Knight tries to warn him off, basically says, look, we have no money, this is precarious.
But Johnson's just all in. He says something like,
Yeah, I want to be able to make it on Tiger. Running, school,
yeah,
being my own boss. He saw opportunity where Knight saw, well, risk.
it's that infectious energy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that outside optimism.
Definitely. So, learner insight. How do you react to that kind of enthusiasm for your own stuff, even if you see the problems?
Yeah, when is it good to just lean into that positive energy?
Good question. Okay, then the story brings in a heavyweight. Bill Bowerman.
The legendary coach.
Mhm.
Huge credibility boost.
Mhm.
And just this relentless drive for innovation.
Bowerman was something else. Constantly messing with shoes. His runners were basically his test subject.
His lab mice, yeah. Always trying new things, looking for an edge.
Mixing up weird drinks for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wanting to write a book on jogging because he believed if you have a body, you're an athlete. That's powerful.
He really embodies that continuous improvement mindset. Get feedback, iterate, never settle, be close to your runners in his case.
Then there's the other key figure, Hayes, the accountant.
The hard-drinking accountant seems like an unlikely source of wisdom.
Right. But apparently, late nights in dive bars yielded some solid business advice.
He was the pragmatist, wasn't he? Always asking the tough questions. Starting a shoe company, now, with no cash.
Yeah, grounding the vision in reality.
Yeah.
But he also saw Bowerman's value, even if you couldn't put it on a spreadsheet.
Exactly. He recognized Bowerman was this unique, invaluable asset.
So, learner, where do you find unexpected wisdom? Might not be the obvious places.
And how do you balance that practical stuff, the numbers, with belief in those intangible things like a Bauman?
Good point. Now, it wasn't all smooth sailing, obviously. There were major setbacks.
For sure. Personal stuff like that rejection from Sarah he mentions really hit him hard.
Yeah, shows how personal life bleeds into everything.
Yeah.
And the importance of support, like his sister Jean.
And on the business side, things with Onitsuka got really rocky.
Delays, difficult communication. This guy Katami.
Yeah, Katami sounds like he became a real problem. And then the ultimate blow finding out Onitsuka was looking at other U.S. distributors. Betrayal.
Oof. That anecdote about Penny changing the tire while Katami just sits in the car.
Says it all, doesn't it? The disrespect, the breakdown of that partnership.
So, actionable thought. How do you handle big setbacks, betrayals, what gets you through, who's in your corner?
Knowing your own resilience toolkit is vital.
But often, challenges force you down new paths.
Exactly. Enter Nisho, the Japanese trading company. They became a lifeline.
Provided financing when maybe banks wouldn't have.
Right. And a key person there was Sumeragi. He didn't just offer money, he offered belief and strategic support.
It highlights finding partners who really get it, who believe in the vision, not just the immediate numbers.
Crucial. And that Nisho backing enabled them to look for new manufacturers, which was its own chaotic adventure.
Yeah, that trip with Seoul Jr. sounds wild.
Yeah.
But it led them to Nippon Rubber, which was essential. Shows that perseverance pays off, even when it's messy.
Absolutely. Resourcefulness, adaptability, you need that when you're building something new, navigating all those unknowns.
And personally, during all this, Penny's pregnancy was difficult, but it also seemed to sharpen his focus.
Yeah, sometimes those big personal life events can really fuel your determination at work.
So learner, think about your key partnerships. How do you build them? What happens when they get strained? When do you need new ones?
And how do big life moments affect your own drive and focus?
Okay, turning point time. Bowerman and the waffle iron.
Genius. Sees his wife making waffles, thinks about traction. Boom. Waffle soul.
And it was an instant hit, right? Really took off.
Massive. And that success gave them the confidence, the push to launch their own brand.
Which they decided to call Nike.
After the Greek goddess of victory. But yeah, launching Nike meant breaking fully with Onitsuka.
Which led directly to the lawsuit from Kitani.
Must have been terrifying. Your whole company on the line.
Yeah, he talks about tracking the pair counts daily. Like every single sale mattered for survival.
That intense pressure, that uncertainty. Wow.
But even then, they innovated. Came up with the Futures program.
Right, getting retailers to order shoes months in advance. Clever way to manage cash flow and growth when things were so tight.
It shows you got to innovate in your operations too, not just the product. Especially under pressure.
So, learner question. When do you know it's time for that big leap? To go your own way, despite the risks?
And how do you measure progress, stay focused, when everything feels uncertain? What's your pair count?
Good way to put it. The trial itself sounds like pure drama.
Yeah, different legal styles. Onitsuka's lawyer, Hilliard, was aggressive.
While their guy, Cousin Hauser, was more calm, methodical.
Shows there's not just one way to handle conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hauser's approach worked too.
And the surprise witness, in a way, was Jeff Johnson.
The quiet reader guy.
Yeah, apparently gave incredibly clear, detailed testimony. Really knew his stuff, made a huge impact.
While Bowerman, usually so commanding, kind of struggled on the stand.
It's amazing how pressure reveals different strengths, isn't it? Johnson's meticulous nature shone through.
Then the settlement meeting, Strasser's there, being kind of weird but insightful.
Yeah, Strasser nails it. He says they weren't just selling shoes, they were
Fighting against conformity and selling an idea spirit.
That's the core, isn't it? The why behind the what.
Definitely. So, learner reflection. Where have unexpected strengths popped up for you or your team under pressure?
And what's the deeper idea or spirit driving what you do?
Okay, they win the case, but the struggles aren't over, not by a long shot.
Nope. Currency fluctuations, always chasing cash flow.
And that insane moment with the Bank of California.
Oh yeah, threatening to pull their funding, calling it fraud. Terrifying.
That must have been rock bottom. Shows how vulnerable startups can be.
And again, who steps up? Penny, with unwavering belief. And Nisho, staying supportive.
Those relationships, again, absolutely crucial.
Can't overstate their importance.
And somewhere in all this chaos, the swoosh logo gets designed almost casually.
Yeah, crazy story. And they nearly got wiped out by that American selling price tariff issue.
Needed people like Verschel and Senator Hatfield to basically save them. Reminds you, external factors can hit you out of nowhere.
You got to be aware of the bigger picture, the politics, the economics affecting your world.
All this financial juggling, these near misses. It eventually forces their hand, right? Going public.
Yeah, Knight wasn't keen initially, but it became the necessary step to solve the constant cash crisis.
Even then, there's drama over the share price. Hayes advises caution.
But Knight digs in. He believes they're worth more, that quote.
Our stock was worth $22 a share. We'd earn that number. He felt they deserved the high end.
And incredibly, they IPO the same week as Apple Computer. Wow.
Imagine that. So final actionable thought here. How do you weigh financial advice against your own gut feeling about your value?
And when is it time for that major strategic shift, like going public, even if it wasn't the original dream?
So they go public, huge success, flood of attention.
Including a call from Tiger, ironically.
Full circle, but then personal tragedy strikes with Bowerman's passing.
You really feel that loss in the writing. It underscores how much those early partners meant, beyond just business.
Yeah, the human element is so strong.
And the journey continued, of course. Later challenges, like the whole sweatshop crisis.
Right, force them to really look at their responsibilities, change practices.
And touching stories, like Waddell's resilience and his parents having faith way back at the beginning.
It all feeds into Knight's final reflection, doesn't it? That warning to innovators.
Yeah. I'd like to warn the best of them, the rebels, that they will always have a bullseye on their backs.
It acknowledges that pushing boundaries comes with constant challenges. It never really stops.
The journey of chasing those crazy ideas is ongoing.
Okay, let's wrap this up. Key takeaways for you, the learner, from this deep dive into Shoe Dog. What do we got?
Number 1, embrace those crazy ideas, your passions. Pursue them like Knight did, with real determination. That fire is key.
Expect people to doubt you. It's normal. Build your resilience, believe in your vision.
Look for wisdom everywhere. Mentors and insights pop up in the weirdest places. Stay open.
Build your tribe. Strong relationships, personal and professional, are your lifeline when things get tough.
Be ready to pivot. Sometimes you got to change course, break away, forge a new path. Have that courage.
Balance the practical stuff, the money, the logistics, with your core values. What's the spirit driving you? Don't lose that.
Know that setbacks will happen. It's part of the game. Focus on bouncing back, learning, adapting. Resilience is everything.
And trust your gut. Listen to advice, yes, but ultimately believe in your own judgment and the value you bring.
Right. So the final provocation for you, the learner, is this.
What's your crazy idea right now? The one simmering away.
And forget giant leaps for a second. What's one small thing you can do today? Just one step to move it forward.
Keep exploring these themes. Think about your own inner entrepreneur, whether you're building a business or just building a life you're passionate about.
Because as Shoe Dog shows us, the journey itself, that's where the real learning, the real reward often lies.